Greetings, everybody. It is Sunday. It's Overreaction Sunday. Bad overreactions, I guess, this week after Georgia Tech's lost to Notre Dame. It was an interesting day. A tough day all around for uh, Georgia Tech fandom. Texas laying the egg, and Saturday night didn't help either. With people hoping to quell old curbs in the UGA. So yeah, it was a interesting game. Unfortunately, I was correct in my prediction, which is very funny because so many people are mad at me right now. But like, I almost, if they'd hit one of the field goals, would have pretty much been on my number. I said, what did I say, 31-17, Alex?
31-17. I had 30-20. So
And ironically, our Notre Dame guy, Tyler James, had 31-17 as well. So she didn't play very well all around. Notre Dame's very good on defense. One of the top teams in the country in defensive efficiency. And I felt like it was not a great matchup. And then you go into it banged up at multiple positions. No Kyle Eford, no Rodney Shelley, and of course, no Haynes King. Jackson Haas playing on 1 foot, tight end. No Rylan Goody at tight end. Avery Boyd played like 9 snaps. Josh Beetham was out. Pretty thin at that position group, having to move an offensive lineman, Harrison Moore, over there again to kind of cover. Zach Pyron coming into the game, not 100%, took a beating in the second half of the game, especially on the last couple drives. Did some good things. Didn't get a lot of help, I think, from the skill group in terms of them just making big plays, other than Abdul Janae's long catch and run, which was a great play, and him breaking tackles. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of any razzle dazzle. They couldn't run the football at all. Notre Dame just completely boxed them in, and they became one dimensional, and it kept trying to run here and there, but running backs were, what was it, 13 for 34 or something like that rushing, with the 1 touchdown that Jamal fumbled back into his own hands, so that was not ideal. Special
yes,
teams are still brutal at times, and the kicking game's real bad. The punt and punt coverage is kind of an adventure. You're not getting anything consistently there. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's been um, a long. It was a long yesterday. Brent Key was in quite a fiery mood after the game. He kept together for his press conference, but you could tell he was upset about just how the whole game transpired, and some of the things that happened during the game. Some weird non-calls. Obviously, Shanahan got roughed at least twice, or ran into, depending on one of them was probably roughing, one was something else. But I think the other thing that people aren't realizing, and I think everyone saw Notre Dame lose to NIU at the beginning of the season, and there's just a bunch of these games going on this year, and teams just put clunkers out there and don't show up for whatever reason, and suddenly everyone assumed Notre Dame was bad. And that was the thing I kept trying to tell everybody going into last week, that I had a bad feeling about the game for Georgia Tech's matchup against Notre Dame, that I actually thought they were pretty good. And everybody's like, oh, no, 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 no. And like everyone I talk to that knows football, that's not in like the Georgia Tech bubble of like our site or whatever, like kept telling me that they felt like it was a bad matchup. Not like the people, not the talking heads, but like the real people. And so the people I trust, their football opinions, didn't feel great about it. And so I think that's, the sort of where the I think there's, from the jump of this season, there's been like this sort of weird expectation for Georgia Tech to be probably 2 steps ahead of where they are right now, rebuilding the program. And it was a rebuild. Like, the culture was not great with Jeff Collins. There were a lot of issues, and um, I just think that it's it's I think people are so anxious to win games right now after the wilderness years, post Paul Johnson, and even the back end of Paul's time, which was kind of a slog, that they expect things to suddenly turn back into this magical time in their head where all things were clicking, and it's only happened a few times, and usually because of really special players in the last whatever 25 years. Like, yeah, Joe Hamilton and Tagazi a little bit with a great staff and O'Leary at clicking. And then, go to Paul with two really tremendous seasons, two other pretty good ones. But like, it's not been consistent. A lot of it is to do with things that are much bigger than what's going on. Essentially, that's what JBath AD is trying to work on and fix. And I thought it would be interesting to see what I'm interested to see how this plays out over time. But this is a little momentum killing. I think playing in the Ben, I am very opposed to playing in the Benz for Georgia Tech. I understand why they're doing it financially, but I just think you have one of the best stadiums in the country. Play in your own stadium, and so I think that's a killer. The students didn't show up this week. Uh, it's it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to cover. It's frustrating, I'm sure, for the players and the coaches and everybody else. But we'll see where they finish the season. They still have Virginia Tech this week on the road. You get a week off, and you play Miami at home, and then another bye week, and then NC State on Thursday night, and then Georgia on Black Friday. So there's still a lot to play for. They're in the middle of the pack in the league. They have a chance to move out of that if you can beat Virginia Tech and Miami and get yourself in good bowl position. And NC State, all three of those teams have shown that they are gettable. Miami is miraculously, um, uh, survived up to this point, but has not played great all the time. They even didn't play the bits of the Louisville game I saw weren't great. So who knows, man? Like every week seems to be different in college football, and that's the one thing I'd say take away from all of this. And um, there's still a lot to do with the roster in terms of getting better. And I think Notre Dame exposed a lot of Georgia Tech's flaws. That would be my way of putting that. I don't know, Alex. You were sitting next to me in the game. Like, what did you see?
Yeah, like you said, with just now with the roster thing, when I did that star comparison last week, it was I think Notre Dame might have had 2, 3-star starters out of the whole both sides of the ball. So that's where your roster, like, I don't think you're ever going to get there like recruiting nationally like Notre Dame and some of the big boys. But when you've got that kind of talent all the way across the board, and Georgia Tech's trying to, plug in guys that kind of got exposed yesterday, especially with the injuries and everything. We don't have the depth to, overcome that kind of thing. It was just, I don't know. It was a game where you did some good things early, and then after that drive, that long drive that Notre Dame scored on, and then Georgia Tech give the ball right back to them, and they score again. After that, it was very inconsistent, and special teams, like you said, are just a mystery. It's just, I don't know, not being able to, operate a clean 39-yard field goal before the half that would have been huge momentum, and you get the ball back after half. That's got to be really frustrating. And I don't know. It was a long, like you said, it was a long day. That's how I would describe it for the team and for everybody. It was a long
One
day.
mile walk straight uphill from the bad parking they gave all of the media,
Yeah,
which was
Yellow
on the
Light
other side
was.
of the Congress Center, instead of like one of the decks there, which we normally get. And I feel bad because I feel bad for Alex and Blake, my photographer, because I turned down like someone's better parking pass, thinking, not knowing that they were going to give us bad parking for the game. Um,
It just seemed like such a long day. Just
yeah.
traffic was awful on the way there, and just getting, like you said, dang, getting up to the stadium and the way the game went, and then yeah, it was just a long day. I got home to see the very end of Georgia beating Texas, which really helped my night out a lot. Um,
I
and then
wasn't so like, at least that wasn't like, it wasn't close in the sense that it wasn't like they came back and beat them in the last second. There were far other more. What happened to UCF was pretty funny last night. There was some entertaining, a little bit of entertaining stuff in that evening game. And obviously, the big game was the Alabama Tennessee game. That was also uh, insane. The Texas Georgia game, though, just to pause down for a second, it actually is interesting because it reminds me of what happened. Was it the last home Tech game where they got mad at the officials and were throwing stuff on the field? Was that the Duke
Yeah,
game?
that was Duke, yeah, because it was on that pass interference call
Yeah, it
that
was a terrible pass
started it.
interference call
Yeah,
the pick that Saeed had, right? Like he picked off the guy, and they got mad because they called it DPI, and it was
yeah.
at best maybe the other way, just like the play in the Georgia Texas game. I've never, I, my buddy, one of my buddies texted me. It was just like, I think the refs were afraid they were going to die in Austin, and that's like why they did that. Like he goes, I've never seen this. Is a guy as a coach. He's like, I've never seen this in my life. Like a guy who's worked in the business forever, doesn't coach Tech, but like another place. And he was like, I've never seen this before. And this dude's, been in college football for almost 40 years. And he was like, oh my gosh. Like, um,
I
but
was
yeah, I think there's every week there's disappointing teams, right? Notre Dame had their one against NIU. You've had Alabama lose to Vandy. You've had Tennessee lose to Arkansas. You've had Georgia lose at Bama, who was not the Bama of old. Then you have Texas lose to Georgia at home in this big coming out party for the Longhorns. And as someone who grew up a Texas fan, is very the irony was not lost on me that they fumbled their big moment away once again
hey
in a big game.
Vanderbilt's in the top 25 now, so
Are they really after their narrow win over Ball State? I
yep,
guess yeah.
25th.
They got to have a certain amount of SEC teams ranked at all times, Alex. It's
That's
it's
correct.
it's literally written into the polls. No, I don't know that. I mean, I think that Vandy probably deserves to be ranked, to be honest. But yeah, it is funny that they've played with fire. They lost to Georgia State. Like this whole season makes no damn sense. Like I think if you play like if Georgia Tech replayed all of their games, you could get a different result in most of them, like other than maybe Georgia State and VMI. Like that's how weird the season has been. And so I thought the better team won like Saturday. I don't think there's anything you say. Notre Dame kicked their ass, like in the second half of the game, particularly. Like, and so you tip your hat and you move on. You know, I made the mistake of saying something really stupid on Twitter because I was annoyed at the way Marcus Freeman was coaching the end of the game, and I got to learn to not be so feisty on my. I keep upsetting people with my feistiness and sarcasm and uh, all of that stuff, and just talking off the cuff. And apparently, I need to dial it back. Um,
Nah, you're fine.
uh, Being real is apparently too hard for some people to, even if I'm not right. Um,
I guess I mean we're just supposed to say the normal sports writer down the middle type things on Twitter. People don't expect us to have any kind of opinions or emotion or whatever. And I definitely have to dial it back sometimes because I was pretty frustrated sitting in the press box. But hey, it's like you said, this game in the grand scheme of it doesn't mean a whole lot.
no, this is a game I had them losing at the beginning of the year. I should go back and look at where Tech is at on my chart.
and
I
you
guess
just think
they're probably down one win from what I thought they would be because I thought they would beat Cuse. So they're off by one on my chart where I had them in the 7 to 8 win range. Um, Not that I know. I mean, again, like I didn't know Haynes King would get hurt, so like, or the tight end position would be absolutely just decimated with injuries.
that's what did Harpring play yesterday? I don't.
No, I don't think so. I think they're trying to maybe be careful with him with his red shirt year. Um,
Gotcha. I can't remember.
yeah, and I think if I told a lot of people at the beginning of the year they'd be 5-3 after 8 games, most people would be like, okay, thinking that maybe Florida State would be good, and Louisville would be good, and Notre Dame would be good, and those would be your losses. And instead, it's Syracuse, and Syracuse is not bad. They're much better than I anticipated because McCord's playing really well for them, and they figured out their offense enough, and then they got that a couple of good pieces on their defense. The big thing right now, still that I see with the defense, and it came up a couple times, is they just cannot get home to the quarterback consistently. Sylvain had Leonard wrapped up and couldn't get him to the ground on a play. There was another play where Zeke just froze on a screen. He like stopped. He was chasing. And Zeke played really well, but this was super weird. He was chasing it. It was a screenplay. I think they like tackled the running back in the backfield or something crazy, and like they didn't know what to do. And Leonard, he froze, I guess, to try to cage Leonard maybe, or whatever he was doing, and it allowed him to escape. And they would have got a sack on the play from either him or maybe it was Romello coming in on the other side. But instead, he was able to kind of escape out of it. So I think that the defense looks much better to me. They're still missing a lot of pieces. The linebacker situation is not great. We all kind of anticipated that. It took guys in the portal like EJ Lightsey and Jackson Hamilton who didn't play at other places that play a lot of guys. Jackson Hamilton was a special teams guy. He's been okay for them at the weak side backer behind Trent Tatum, who's played pretty well a lot of the time, and then still has some of the old mistakes that have always kind of tarnished his game a little bit. And then Eford's played well at the mic, but you thought maybe Lightsey would be the backup. It's ended up being Tajay. Tajay has to start because Kyle's out. Tajay doesn't play well in a game that's a very difficult game for a linebacker with a running quarterback. That was my biggest concern when I heard Eford was out, was how would Tajay handle trying to deal with that QB situation, and how much would that mess him up? And it seemed like he was a little shook up. The whole middle that the back defense was struggling at times. Tay Seymour has been playing really well. He had his worst game of the year. Like it was just not. It was just out of sync, and Notre Dame was just imposing their will at times. And it happens sometimes. The other team will do that to you. And I've seen it with every team I've ever covered, whether it's here or in the SEC or wherever. So um, you move on to the next one. Hope that it's not a trend. If you can play better at Virginia Tech this week, then I think a lot of people will not pay attention to this. And if, good luck to Notre Dame. Maybe they'll be in the playoffs. I don't know. They have Navy this week. I'm curious how that game goes. I don't know if Navy's
They
any good or not.
they still have to play Navy and Army, I believe, and both of those are not as
Ranked.
easy as they
I
like
think they're
a.
both ranked now, right?
I think
I
they're
know
both
Navy is.
undefeated.
Yeah, so like we'll see what happens. Is I imagine they should beat them on paper by skill, but we'll see.
That's the biggest thing. Is I think Virginia Tech this week is a really huge game to see how the rest of the season is going to go, because you're obviously banged up a little bit, but Virginia Tech is a winnable game, and if you get that sixth win and get bowl eligible by the end of October, November is kind of like, I mean, you obviously don't, it's not a huge relief, but like you can, a little bit of the pressure's off. You're going to a bowl, and the rest is like, icing on the cake to be better or whatever. But I don't
No,
know
get
that.
those extra practices are huge, and it's
Yep.
big for guys like Philo and Matthew's got the point in this and the thing. Progress is not a linear thing, right? And Brandon's trying to build a culture and what they're doing and all that. I think and I'm sure this will come up in the questions, Alex, where I skip over this as we touch on this now, but like I think where people get frustrated with these things is things like not being able to kick a field goal, which is not something that's been a problem in the previous when it was 8 and 21 games that Brent coached prior to this season. Um, I don't know what that's about. I have some theories. I'm not going to share them. I don't think it's important to. It's something I would have a private conversation with somebody about, like not on here. What I think might be going on with the kicking, but I just think that that's the stuff that you lose the way Tech fans are seem to be in their mindsets. They don't appreciate ineptitude and things they expect to happen. Charles, to answer Charles's question. Uh, so Charles mentioned the Mississippi State team honored their 2014 team at their game on Saturday, and he thought it was a nice touch. They invited St. John Days to run right through them. St. John was in fact at the Benz with his wife, but um, Georgia Tech will honor the 2014 Orange Bowl team, I think, before the Miami game, if I recall correctly. So Georgia Tech's doing the same thing, which is cool. I don't know if that'd be public, so I hope I never run anybody's thing. But and they've been slowly getting some of those guys back this season. I talked about Chris Milton went to like his first game in forever probably since he stopped playing or the year after he stopped playing the other day. But yeah, it's tough. And then the two fakes that Notre Dame picked converted, the fake punt, which credit to them, that was a good play, and then the fake field goal, which I thought was a little bush league. But you know, some people were trying to tell me their kickers hurt. There were a lot of excuses from Notre Dame people. I don't know. I don't cover Notre Dame or really care. I just thought it was weird to do that in that situation. You kick the field goal, go up, you're up 3 scores with 3 minutes to go. You're good to go.
I mean, they were already up
Or
three
just run
scores.
run a play, like just line up and run a play. I wouldn't even have cared if they went for it because I think it was 4th and 4 or something. So like, go
Yep.
for it. Like,
Yeah, their
I'm not.
kicker.
That's like Lane Kiffin to me, and like I don't like that. No offense to Lane, but Lane's a guy who likes to pedal to the metal. I think you piss off a lot of people. Notre Dame has always seemed to be a school that tries to hold themselves up to being like at this higher standard of stuff. So I think it's where it bothered me a little more.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know the kicker was different than what was listed on their starters, but he had already nailed a field goal, before that. And
Oh my goodness. I love this. Darth Vader said he'll have his water bottles and other ready for any questionable calls during the Miami game. No doubt you might need them with having watched the beauty of being able to watch several of the end of Miami games after we've come home, the Cal game, and then what was the other one? Oh,
Virginia
the
Tech,
Virginia Tech game. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You guys might need to bring things to. Y'all might need to bring like something, a javelin or something bigger, and you won't be able to get that past security. But you'll need some. You may need your projectiles. Unfortunately, I'm not advocating for that. By the way, do
Oh,
not bring stuff in the stadium.
nobody clipped that because we might get in trouble for that. All the other Georgia Tech
Everybody's trying
media
to
folk.
tattle tales. Um, no, man. I mean, I think yeah, Eric's correct that the ACC refs wouldn't care and wouldn't wouldn't do that.
I posted
Um,
on my Facebook today, just like I was seeing all the Georgia fans talk about the weird calls and stuff yesterday. I was like, just like welcome to the rest of college football. Like officiating is bad. It's just what it is. Like I
yeah,
don't know.
like the Nick Saban would occasionally get one like turned like by not there's not a lot of coaches that get calls turned. I mean, if Brent had something to throw, he would have thrown it at a ref during that get on one of those punts. He was as hot as I've ever seen him. And then one of the timeouts they called, he was flipping the hell out. And I don't know what happened on that play either, but um, it has been very bad this year across the board. I've watched a lot of games, especially the interference calls. Like I don't understand. Um, And then some of the delay of game things, it seems like they're struggling with how to call that. Where if a team shifts before the snap on defense, that becomes a delay of game penalty because it's illegal. But then I saw Georgia doing it against Texas and they weren't calling it, so I'm not sure if it had something to do with how they were doing. I don't know. Like
There
I
was a
can't get my finger on like what's legal and what's not. I don't really care enough. And I don't enjoy going to listen to the guy from the ACC head of officials talk every year because I just don't. And so I don't, because I remember the last time I ever went to that, they have, so at the ACC kickoff, they have these different seminar things. And one of them is the head of officials, used to be Doug Rhodes, I think was his name, passed away, rest in peace, dude. He used to do it, but I'll never forget. It was when they started the targeting thing, and they showed that hit that Adam Gotsis put on the Virginia quarterback in North Carolina. I forget which team it was. There was like a textbook tackle where his helmet just happened to hit like under the dude's chin because he hit him so hard in the chest and like kind of went up like this. There was nothing Adam could do. He was running at him and went like this to try to not go low on him, which was also a penalty. And they threw him out of the game. And I think it was Virginia, and they lost the game. And they were playing well until Adam got tossed out of the game. And they showed that damn clip the next year at the ACC referee meeting. And I was just like, he's like, this is a textbook targeting. I was like, no, you're out of your damn mind. This is like how people were taught to tackle like growing up. Like this is football. Like what are we doing? Um so yeah, I mean there was, yeah, I'm not pulling for Georgia or anything. I'm a Texas fan, but I thought some of their targetings were a little bit sketch that they got. Like I hate that rule. It killed Charlie Thomas's career at Georgia Tech. Um it's just like, yeah, it just takes the football out of it. Like to be honest with you, man, like if you took, I think there's in a weird, it's gonna sound real crazy, but like it seems like maybe they've like emboldened people by having too much safety equipment and too much nannying. I don't know. Like to the, it's just taken a lot of the fun out of the game. Watching it, like I'm not looking for somebody to spear people like Chuck Cecil. Like I think that's insane. But like, um, I don't know. Well, let's get to the questions. I'm exhausted, man. I didn't sleep much last night.
Yep.
So my wife said I look like death. Like today, she said I just
It was
look
a
like
long.
that.
It was a long day. First question is the special teams. What in the actual stars is going on with special teams play? Um, yeah,
I
just
feel like we kind of talked about it. I think
right.
so that's very much a mental. So like so you can go through each of the situations. One of the field goals was it was a high snap to Shanahan, the one that ended up being like the negative 16-yard play or whatever it was. That was a bad snap. I couldn't tell, so people jumped on me on Twitter for blaming Shanahan. He was his back was to me, I think, when they're kicking the field goal. So like I couldn't have seen it anyways, like the snap where it was. Like they were underneath us where we were in the corner. And they were I was sort of seeing it front ways. So like I wouldn't have been able to tell that live. People forget too. I'm like tweeting like as the thing happens sometimes, so like you're seeing things different. Um, and by the way, Howard's talking about the helmet to helmet thing. I put on the Guardian caps, and I think maybe you can hit helmet to helmet more, or get rid of some of this stuff. Make them wear the little stupid Guardian caps. Just put something on it. Sell advertising, and you can put it in your NIL collective or money or whatever. Um,
Just don't wear helmets. I mean, if you don't want helmet to helmet, let's
like
just go back.
play like Aussie rules football or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Like that would
that's
or go back to leather helmets.
yeah. I mean, no helmet to helmet won't be targeting. I mean, everybody's hitting head to head. That'll be safer, right?
I don't know, man. There's some dudes that I would not trust to play like that.
I'm being sarcastic. That's crazy.
I want to see
Um,
somebody get decapitated. But yeah, special teams. So a lot of it, like king punting's mental. It's like golf swings. That's what Paul Johnson always used to compare that to golf. A lot of coaches do that play golf. I think a lot of it's mental, but like one of them, like the I don't even know what they're called. I don't remember my special teams terminology. It was the guy who was protecting the edge blocker, just didn't move, and the guy ran right by him and blocked. That might have been the Louisville one that went for a touchdown. Like that was just literally the backup tight end who was playing in the game just didn't even like stick his arm out to like slow the guy down. That's not that wasn't Aiden Burr's fault. That was just bad luck. Aiden's hooked some shots, especially from the right hash. They've had some bad snaps. It looked like Alex, you could weigh in on this. The one that got blocked. It looked like there was just a like Moses parting the seas in the middle of the line, right at the holder. Like there was like three dudes with their arms up, like going towards David Shanahan when the kick went up from Burr on the second one that got blocked.
yeah, there was pressure in the middle, and the guy jumped really high, and um, I don't know. Back in my day, on field goal and PAT block, you were just told to, take a step in, like where everybody comes together. And I think now, like that, more like guys like take a step a little bit forward to kind of attack. Because if you don't do that, guys are going to be able to get up, in their stance and get higher. So
You know,
I
kind
don't
of
know.
submarine them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on with special teams. I like you could practice it a million times in practice and have the cleanest operation, but once you get to the game, it's different. Like they
Well,
can
it's
say
like
it.
Shanahan dropped a snap in was it the North Carolina game? So like those things happen, man. Like on a punt, that stuff happens, and like I'd say the biggest problem, like so, like with punting, the biggest issue is David is. I think that first year where or second year, whatever it was, when he had all the punts blocked, I think that has like gotten into his head
Yep.
because his internal clock really struggles with because he'll like blast out there real fast and there's like no pressure coming at all, and then sometimes he'll take too long and it nearly gets blocked, and so it feels like he just doesn't always have a great feel for that. I don't, again, but he's a guy who's been playing football for 4 years, so like it's hard to get mad at him. That's one of the when you go into the Aussie rules kickers, that's one of the things that sometimes comes up with those guys is there's some nuances to it that they maybe take longer to learn or struggle with adapting to or whatever. And I do wonder if that like gets in your head a little bit when you have 5 punts blocked or whatever the hell it was that year with Jeff's last year. Like that was insane. So I mean, they're not
He's,
doing that. They do
he's,
practice with a full rush, Andrew. By the way, you're
yes,
asking about that.
I
We
saw that.
literally see this. This is like the part of practice we get to see all the time. Is them doing live special teams stuff, and so that's definitely something we see. They're definitely going live, and we've definitely seen kicks blocked and guys miss field goals and stuff in practice at times. Uh,
Going back to Shanahan, he's definitely rushing like his process. He's he's in between like when you're a punter, you're supposed to like to have the same. I think somebody mentioned this on the board, like watching warmups. He's even like in warmups, his drop to punt the ball is different. Like almost every time, like there's no consistency. And maybe like you said, like he got so many punts blocked and had to, he was under so much pressure those first few years. Like I guess that kind of just got like ingrained into his head that he's always got to be in a hurry. And when a punter has to have timing right, the drop, hit the ball at the certain right angle, and like if that gets thrown off at all, it's going to be bad. And I don't know. Sometimes they use the rugby punt. Sometimes they just do regular punt. I think he's like caught in between right now of what
yeah,
he
it
needs
seems
to
like
do.
there's a little indecisiveness with it.
So yeah, that's got to get worked out because I don't know. Like I think he's got all the talent to be a good punter, but something's going on, some process or something's going on that's not allowing him to do that. So I don't know. Special teams, like I said, you practice it all day in practice, but once you get the pressure turned up in a game, you never know how guys are going to respond. And I don't know. I don't. That's a lot of the questions is how do you fix special teams? I don't know if there's a concrete answer to do that, and
And
I
it's
don't know.
interesting because they brought in Tim Salem to work with Ricky. He's with them all day doing stuff. So I don't know.
They're in great shape, as we know. You know
Yeah,
what I
they
mean?
do a lot of sit ups.
They're always doing something during practice.
Um,
Let's see.
and he was a successful special teams coach at Pitt. So and Ricky was doing a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shanahan's best punt at UNC got called back for the formation. Uh, that's funny.
And then he had the rushed punt at North Carolina that ended up being a return. Like it was a line drive right to the guy that the guy
Yeah,
returned
he
for a
just got
touchdown.
it on. He just kicked a like straight line drive to the guy.
Yeah.
Out
It's,
kicked his coverage. I think they'll definitely be looking at the kicking situation. I mean, Brent's shown openness to do that. They brought in Burr when they had Gavin Stewart and to compete, and they ended up, Gavin struggled. It's been weird because the same thing. Remember last year, Gavin Stewart struggled, and they put in Burr. They don't have a Aiden Burr on the bench now to try either. If and I don't know how much of this is him. Like he's not getting the last three of the last 4 field goals he's tried were literally not his fault, and then he hooked one. Like on a kicking from the right hash, which has been his struggle. So I don't know how much to put on him in all of this. That's in his kickoffs have, for the most part, been fairly consistent. Um, the kick coverage has not been great on some of the kickoffs that have been returned. It's just not. It seems out of sync. I don't know if they're lacking the right kind of athletes in those spots or what. Something's going on.
Yep. Next question on the board was why was last year's offense better than this year's? That's a pretty open ended question, but
Why was what?
why was last year's offense better than this year's?
I don't know that it was. I mean, they turned the ball over like crazy. People were going nuts about how often they were up there in 3 and outs last year too. They were just hitting explosives. This year they've been very good at driving the ball, which was the opposite problem last year. They've had most of their scoring drives this year have been long 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 play drives and scoring the football. Last year was like 3 play drives. They would hit a long pass or screen or something or break or Haynes King would take off. And then, they get down in the red zone and it would be a little inconsistent with Haynes either running it or Jamal or like throwing to Brett Scyther or whatever. Here's the other thing too, like they still aren't where they need to be in terms of receivers, development there. Eric and Malik are two really great pieces, but they're very similar, smaller guys. They don't have that big. They don't have a guy doing what Abdul Janae did consistently, right? Um, so I don't know. They
Yeah,
just couldn't run against Notre Dame. By the way, somebody was asking about that in the chat, and no, Notre Dame blew them up in the backfield. They were getting nothing. If you take out, they had one long run. If you take that out, it's like 2 yards a carry or something in the game.
yeah. Zach Pyron was our leading rusher with 45 yards on 13 carries. So
Yeah, and he had a couple sacks that took out 14 of his or something like that.
yeah,
Strat Jacket's got the point here. Sometimes you're not going to play well. Like, I'm sure Notre Dame fans were freaking out if they lost to NIU, right? Like, that's the thing. Or Georgia lose, or not Georgia, Alabama losing to Vanderbilt or whatever. These things happen, man. Like, in college football these days, especially when you play good teams, you get away with less. Your margin shrinks. The one thing that Brent Key's talked about all year is creating margin for his team, and talent and recruiting and player development. And all of those things take time. In the first year, they didn't, when did Brent get the job? Like December 8th or whatever it was. Like, um, you're not putting together a full class at that point. You're just holding on to what you had, backfilling. All right. So he's had one class. Of those guys are playing, some of whom were considered afterthought guys that they've gone and found, like Harrison Moore, for example. Right now, they got two good young quarterbacks in that class. They've done a pretty decent job in the portal. They haven't replaced Kyle Kennard's production yet, and I think that's been a problem. So I think that it's hard, man, and the margin thins out. You take away, Haynes King is a top 5 quarterback in the ACC this year, and put in Zach, who's a talented guy who had started a lot of places, but hadn't played much in 2 years, right? He's played that goal line touchdown vulture run. Before that, the last game he played was the Miami game where he broke his collarbone. That was literally almost 2 years ago. Like it was, you know, a year and like 11 months and 2 weeks or something from when he started against Notre Dame. Like, so I think expectations need to shift just a hair. I think at the beginning of the year, I talked about it's 5 to 9 wins is the range, right? They've gotten the 5. So I think 7 in the regular season. I said that's a pretty good season with the schedule you have. Schedule lightens up next year too. Especially if Dion's not at Colorado, which I think there's a decent shot that he's not. Um, so, but so Parker's talking about the ability to drive. There are a lot of 3 and outs. That's across college football. I think the third quarter is where what a lot of people are talking about. That's what I think's been the biggest struggle is when you get into that chess match piece and making halftime adjustments, coming out and executing your game plan. And they'll have like things where a guy will just drop a ball or something, like they have something wired up on first down. The throw's there or the throw's off. They don't connect. They get behind the sticks, and then they have a 3-and-out to open a half. That happened again in this game. I think they either went 3-and-out or they got one first down and then punted. Right? I
It
forget
was
what it
three and
was.
out. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
three and
So
out
like that kills
immediately.
you, right? Because it was a 14-7 game. You come out, you should have whatever script you think you got wired up, and you can't move it. So I
Yeah,
don't know.
don't,
I think again, I think there are twofold issues here. One is the team's young at the wrong spots. Like, you know, you got exposed at linebacker. You had your three of your four linebackers who played on Saturday had played probably career 150 snaps between them in a game on defense between Jackson and EJ and Tajay. Maybe a little more than that, but not. It's not like you're playing three. It's not like last year we had, four really older guys and then Eford mixed in with them and Tatum. So that's part of your problem there. I don't
you
know.
need more depth. Like
I
it's
mean,
not
people are like, oh, they're not driving the ball consistently. Like again, you had injured Jamal Haynes at the beginning of the season. Trey Cooley's played literally zero offensive snaps this season. He played one special team snap, got hurt, and has not played again. You've had Trelane Maddox come back, look good, gets hurt again. Who knows if we see him again this year. So you're on to Chad Alexander, converted walk on, and Jamal Haynes, who are two smaller guys. Anthony Carey, who they don't seem ready to play yet. He's played in 3 games, I think. They're just thin at running back. It's hard, so you're not great at a position. And when Jamal's on, they play and they move the ball really well, and they're consistent. But when they don't have that run game and the running backs can't, and the holes are bad, and it's a complicated problem, and that's why they have so many 3-and-outs too.
Yep, I agree. Need depth at offensive line, need depth at defensive line. That's what you saw with Notre Dame yesterday. They have recruited
But I
very
mean,
well.
again, there's room for improvement too, though. I mean,
Right.
like, and that's where you gotta. That's where having Ralph Regent in the past or Paul Johnson spoiled Tech fans a little bit, and they forget the Patrick Nix and Bill O'Brien eras of offensive coordinating, where it was not like a Hall of Fame level play caller. And so there's a little bit of that too. It's not a shot on Buster. Buster's seems to be a pretty good OC, but like you're talking about two of like the best to ever do it in their generations, and that's something that Tech fans have in their minds. Like it's sort of like when they were good on defense with Tenuta. Everyone has this thought of like when the defense was good with him, and what they did is not you couldn't replicate that now because this they're basically running almost like an air raid defense, for lack of a better way of describing it, or something, or the option, or something that was very niche with the blitzing packages, and it was
I
effective when you had non-running quarterbacks.
I was a lot younger. I mean, I don't know when was Tenuta. I just I he had
Till
some.
Paul took over from like Chan's first
Yeah, he.
second season, maybe.
I think the Tenuta era is like remembered a little bit differently than it actually was.
Oh, don't start this, man. They'll yell at you. They get so
I
mad at me when I
it
say
was
talk about
so
that or the ACC in like the early 2000s, late 90s when I started watching college football.
Tenuta, like, yes, they had great games under him where they got so much pressure and they just wreaked havoc. But there was times too where he got. I mean,
You
they
played a
just
mobile or a really accurate quarterback that could get it out, and it was a problem against that
yeah.
defense.
I mean, yeah. It just
Like Matt Ryan.
it was very inconsistent in under Tenuta. That's just all I'll say. Y'all can have whatever opinions. Like it wasn't like shut down defense every weekend that people
It was a
seem to
different era
think.
of offenses too. Like you didn't have everybody was, a lot of teams were under center, and you still had a lot of two backs, and like it was not being spread. Um, but yeah, it's one of those great ironies that Georgia Tech has been unable to really replicate the defense and the offense being good in the same year, like forever. Like you go back to like O'Leary's teams, and they're like, giving up 38 to really an insanely good Florida State team or something. But like, there's but yeah, like, and then Chan just having like no offense at times. Like it's they've been all, and Paul having bad defenses. Like it's been consistently all over the place. And it's it is what it is.
I was reading the comments there. I don't know. Um,
But you
big
had Reggie Ball, and you had
Taylor Bennett.
Taylor Bennett, great Taylor Bennett.
And you had AJ Suggs, and you had Demarius Bilbo, and yeah,
AJ Suggs, who famously lost to Georgia at both Tennessee, and he was like the first Tennessee quarterback to lose to Georgia in forever, and then came to Tech and proceeded to lose them the next year.
what a
But yeah,
time to
you got
be
to be
in.
able to drive the football. I thought the defense got a little gassed in the game Saturday too, with Notre Dame
Absolutely.
having the sustained drives and then going three and out, coming out. There was I had made, so Nick's talking about this in the chat, but like I had made note of this too, that like they had some really bad three and outs when the defense needed a break in the game, and that was a real momentum killer. I think the second touchdown Notre Dame scored, that was came off of them being on the field for a long drive and then being back on the field for a long drive. Um,
The two momentum shifting sequences of the game I talked about in my takeaways was they went on that first touchdown drive, 8 minutes, like 14 plays. Tech goes out immediate, three and out. Notre Dame goes right back down and scores again on like 5 plays to go up 14-7. And then coming out of the half, you go three and out, you get the ball right back to them. They go up 21-7. So, yep, that three and outs came at a very bad time yesterday against a defense that was not only did you have injured guys going into the game, there were 4 or 5 times where a guy, got injured during the middle of a drive and had to come out, and that's you're already down to backups and stuff. So, yeah, it was just a bad day overall at Mercedes Benz.
yeah, no, I think Parker's absolutely right. It was like, so in the North Carolina game, that's sort of what let North Carolina back into the game. They had um like that false start, right? Like that, or it was 12 men on the field or whatever it was. They had 4th and 1 or whatever it was. They were going to go for it. And they got the penalty because Buster changed the play, and they sent in a sub, but the guy didn't get the signal to come off. And they got that penalty, and then they had to punt, and then Carolina drove and scored again, I think, to tie the game. I think that was the sequence. But yeah, it's like one of just being able to not convert when you need it, and it's been a problem all year. It was a problem in several of the games. Syracuse, they needed to sustain drives in that game in the first half. I think the Louisville game, they couldn't run the football and went to the pass too late. And I wonder if like Haynes King's shoulder things go all the way back to that point in the year, because he was really inaccurate on some of his deep throws, more than he usually is. And maybe that's why they weren't challenging as much down the field too. Um,
Yeah.
well, so yeah, Parker's talking about not only to get three and out, but didn't they get a false start on the first play of the third quarter too? Like after the kickoff, I feel like they did. Like they
I
came
can't.
out and it was like 1st and 15 or something.
I
Um,
think they.
there
I
was
think
there was one of the drives where they really needed to do something, and they got a false
yeah.
start on the first play of the drive. Like, but I'm pretty sure it was either that or coming out of a TV timeout.
I think they had a short run or something, then a false start, like back at like second and
Yeah, maybe that's what it
13 or
was. Yeah,
something. But yeah, it was bad.
it's like you're coming out. Don't do that.
Yeah. There's a question on the board. What does it take to get sacks? What do
They got to get the
honestly,
quarterback down. They've had, I think, 4 or 5 this year that should have been sacks. That 90% of the time would have been sacks. Romelo's had a couple where he's had his hands on guys, didn't get him down. Sylvain had the real bad one with Leonard on Saturday. I talked about the one where Zeke probably could have had him if he just kept running at him, or at least flushed him into another defender. All he had to do was just keep going. pushing him to his right where his help was. Um,
I don't. I
it's
don't know.
hard. Running quarterback thing makes it hard. You have to be really athletic. Their blitzing has been inconsistent, especially with the linebacker. The linebacker blitzes haven't worked great a lot. And yeah, Hal said Notre Dame tackled really well. They play. It's a defense. They have Marcus Freeman is a great defensive coordinator, and they have Al Golden, who's a head coach who's a great defensive coordinator. So you have two guys that are especially skilled in that. So yeah, they're probably gonna be pretty good on defense. Probably gonna be pretty salty, and they were.
And they've got NFL draft picks on at defensive line and linebacker, like multiple guys that's going to play NFL
It
football. So
reminded me a little bit of. It wasn't quite that level, but like a little bit of like '09 in the Orange Bowl when Georgia Tech played Iowa, and they were just loaded on defense.
Adrian
They're
Claiborne.
Yeah, I mean they had like 9 guys in their front 7 that played in the NFL or something in that game, including some of the backups. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you run into that.
Yep.
So yeah, let's turn through some more questions,
Yep.
Alex.
We
I'm
got
sure there's a lot of duplicates and
there is. There's another one. What is done to being done to fix special teams? There's a question.
they're
Is it
doing nothing. Brent Key's like, I think it's fine. Have you ever seen or met Brent Key?
he did. I don't know if I said this on the board, but when I asked about special teams on Tuesday, I didn't think much of it, but the board was
I
like,
had sent you the question. I was
right.
like, hey,
I don't. I don't. Yeah, he came up to me the next day at practice when they were actually in the stadium. And he's like jokingly, he's like, "Man, why did you ask the last question of the press conference about special teams or something?" So I don't know. I think he like thought that he was a little off with his answer to me. So I don't know. Maybe Coach Key has common sense about how to treat people too. So yeah, but whatever. I don't know.
Brent's also got a weird sense of humor, and you guys got to learn that. You guys will start to figure it out. All these guys have different personality quirks. Like Paul Johnson was uh, surprisingly open. I told Alex some pretty. I think Alex got to hear me tell some funny stories about Paul before the game. I'll share those. That's an off-season kind of deal. But yeah, Brett's got kind of a funky personality, or not funky, quirky sense of humor. Is what I
I'm,
was trying to
I'm,
say.
I mentioned this in my notes on Tuesday. He was in the middle of I think Jackson was asking a question, and like in the middle of it, he's just like writing something on his top of his water bottle, and he just wrote a smiley face, and all of a sudden, just in the middle of the question, he just showed it to everybody in the press conference. And I don't know, he's just he's kind of goofy like that,
He
but
is a Georgia Tech dude. Like that's how I would describe Brent, and I say that lovingly, as appreciating many of you guys and your interesting quirks. Brent is very much like a lot of people I know that went to Georgia Tech that are like um atypical, not like just like kind of quirky, I guess would be the way to put it. Like really intelligent and he plays that down a lot. Brent's a really sharp guy.
he's a football guy, but he's also very he's not like an old, just
He's not
routine
Georgia
normal.
Larry, his former
Right.
coach. Yeah.
He's a very smart football guy and different, and yeah. All right, let's see what we got here. There's a question: will Key be open to spending more money to land impact recruits because coaching can only go so far to compensate for lack of talent?
I mean, I think they're doing that already.
Well, yeah, if you believe some
You're
of the
recruiting
report,
head to head with Georgia on multiple guys, and you're recruiting head to head with Clemson and Auburn and all these other places.
if you believe the reports about what Josh Petty got, on his NIL, like I don't know how accurate that is, but if that's what they're spending for,
It was inflated. I'm not
yeah,
gonna say which way. Um, but yeah, they're playing the game though to win, doing what everybody else is doing, using their money, trying to use it wisely. They do have a budget though, man. Everybody does. Like, Kirby's got less money than Ryan Day at Ohio State. There's a pecking order in all of this stuff. And there are fights being fought at every school with boosters to raise money. And people are doing everything they can, and until we get a salary cap or some kind of collective bargaining or roster limit to something that makes sense to organize all of this, you're going to keep seeing people like Tony Bennett retire who can't handle it, and people that have been in the business for a while walking away because it's just exhausting to try to deal with that. You have people coming in. I mean, you'd be surprised at like some of the deals and things that go on, and the asks and why guys leave, and some of the crazy like, you know, Georgia Tech had a backup defensive lineman go to a school, go be a backup, who was potentially a starter this year, had started some games, to go be a backup at SEC school where he has 3 tackles this season, like for money. We got a hoops question for you. Alex is the Jackson McVeigh expert. Alex will be at his thing Tuesday, right?
I'll be in there. I'm trying to get the exact time of when it'll be. So I don't. I've heard good things about Georgia Tech. I wouldn't put a future cast in for it, but
So,
these.
the issue is, I think if Georgia Tech didn't park Cole Kerouac at OTE for the year and Cole was on campus already, that I think it's a slam dunk that you take McVay in that situation. I think with the expanded roster, it should be fine, but they're fishing for some big fish, and I'll have an update tomorrow on some of what's going on with hoops. So just hang tight, check out JOL on Monday afternoon.
And I said this a few weeks ago, but once the OTE season starts, go like you can go go any game, buy a ticket. It's very intimate, like right on top of the court. Yeah, like you can be there to see these guys in person. So yeah, and it's really good basketball. It's different, but it's a good atmosphere.
Ken asked about Tony Bennett. Yeah, he talked about stepping down because of NIL and his discomfort with how everything's set up and how Wild West it is now. Parker wants you to do audio, so that means Alex just has to send it to me and I can put it up.
I need to. I've been using my phone, but I also need to get a tape recorder again. I had two of them that this broke from all my newspaper days, but yeah, I'll start
But yeah,
getting that.
you can just send me the audio file off your phone and I can convert it into whatever and put it up. That's not a big deal.
There's a question on here about are we destined to be eternally mid? That made me chuckle a little bit.
I appreciate that on some level. I think my wife would get upset if I'm using the term mid or anything.
Who's
I think I'm too
there's
old for that, as Dan
yeah
Glover like to say.
who's the next question? Who's getting fired off the staff this year? We're just asking great questions about stuff.
Wow,
This is
that's
wild.
nice. You want me to tell you who I think's getting fired, and then I have to go like try to talk to them and you know have relationships with these people
Hey, we're 5-3 in October, so
for the first time since probably like 2014
let's settle
or
down, guys.
2016, I guess. So be
Yeah,
happy that progress is being made.
that's right. We're
I mean,
going.
it's not mid. They're not poverty program. There's some the Ben's deal with the UGA game cashing in for like $10 million comes across a little bit rough, but I understand what Jay's doing. It they just can't be overt about that. That's just a money grab to fix basically the one-time shortfall from the, and that's probably backfilling that part of the house settlement that's coming that they're gonna have to pay like $20 million or whatever to former players. So 5-3, man. But like, hold your head up, dude. This is huge progress. And like, I get it, man. You see the dude at Indiana went in. Like, they haven't played anybody. They ain't played Notre Dame. Like, guy doing well at. And then like, it's funny because like some of the guys who were on our hot board for when Brent got hired, one of them just got fired at ECU, and Mike Houston, who was a guy who was in being vetted at least a little bit. Um, I don't remember.
Was
I have a hard time remembering the. I'd have to like go back and read what I wrote back during the coaching search to remember if there was any like actual smoke
was
there.
was Neil
Willie
Brown?
Fritz is 2-4, I think, at Houston, or 2-5 now. Um,
Neil Brown's not doing great things at West Virginia right now either. I think he was a name
Well,
that was,
he's been on the verge of being fired for a long time.
yeah,
At the 2-5 for Willie Fritz at Houston. They have literally the worst. They have like Jeff Collins offense from
they're
like
the
circa
worst.
like 2020 or 2019 Jeff Collins offense actually. It's like so bad, it's unwatchable.
They're the
Um
worst team in the Big 12
yeah,
right
and their
now.
offense is like really difficult to watch. Like they should have beaten Oklahoma. They couldn't muster 15 points to beat Oklahoma. Like they struggled to get to 12, I think it was in that game. That was one of the ugliest games.
Whatever happened to Tom Herman? I hadn't seen that. He was the hottest name in college football for a
He's
while.
a isn't he the head coach of Florida Atlantic now?
Uh,
Um, and then Dion took his best player in the portal in the off season. I'm pretty sure that's where Tom Herman is now.
let's
Yeah,
see.
he's 16. He's 6-13 at FAU now. Um, they're 2-5 this year and 0-3 in the American. Again, that's a lot of these guys get stuck in these dead end jobs too, man. That is a job with no money, no facilities. Like they have a stadium that's okay, and you're in Boca, which is nice, but like Boca's expensive. Like a lot of these jobs just aren't set up to win.
Yep.
Um,
Uh, let's see. And there's a question on here
he'll
for
be
you.
asking me if Brent Key's on the hot seat yet.
This question is for Kelly. It says, Kelly, do me a favor. Count the number of times you had to shake your head in disbelief as you read this thread over the show.
I
Over
so
the
I
shoulder.
intentionally stayed away from this and let Alex jump in. I just saw how long it was and was like, oh gosh.
I try to stay
So I was
away from
hoping
it
it was
too.
people arguing with each other and less questions, but I was like, when I got to like 50 something, I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a long
I try
night.
to stay away from it too, so I can like see read it on here and then have a genuine like I just think of the answer, not without anything planned ahead.
So I will disagree with this because I will say that the schedule is harder this year. So if you get to 7 wins again with a harder schedule, I don't know that that's a worse season.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and if you go back to back bowl games for the first time in a decade, I mean, even if you have the same record,
13-14 was the last time, yeah.
yeah. So if you have the same record, but you go to bowl games for consecutive years for the first time in a decade, that's improvement. That's showing consistency. So
Now,
I told you this last night, Kelly. I've always been a negative, always expect the worst Georgia Tech fan, but then getting more in depth in the
on the
boards here
board.
is like, man, I'm not as bad as I thought I was back in the day. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get on y'all. Y'all keep doing your thing, but
Well, it's funny
um,
because people wonder like why I'm so miserable, like on Twitter and some stuff sometimes, and it's like I have been like, it's like somebody's been abused mentally for 15 years or whatever. Cover because it's hard, man. Tech's a hard beat. Like this is not. I cover Georgia and some other places, and like this is hard because you have so many obstacles and you've had so much stuff done from administration and things to make life hard uh and like on a Hall of Fame coach and Paul and like seeing what he went through and then all this stuff and then them hiring the one guy that I was like literally on the board was like please don't hire this guy like and people are like no I'll recruit and they hired Jeff and it just goes worse than even I could have envisioned or anticipated in my worst nightmare. And then Brent comes in and is trying to fix it. And like, it's going to be everyone that they looked at the job, it was looked at as a multi-year rebuild. Like it wasn't, they weren't expected to come out and go win 10 games in 1 year. Like that wasn't happening unless you were, buying into the Dion thing that maybe you could get away with it there. But I didn't feel like they had the resources to pull that off, like in terms of what he would have wanted and the money backing, and I think it would have honestly turned off a lot of the money people to have someone like him. So, and then
well,
he hasn't exactly coached them up to winning. They're sort of doing okay, like, but like I think they're underproducing relative to their talent in that league all the time. So I think the program's headed in the right direction. I think that's the thing that people should be excited about.
yep. Let's see.
But yeah, winning 8 games or winning 7 in the regular season would be nice, and it could still happen. It's just the road's hard, so we'll see what happens.
I was looking at that Dion question on here. Who would they hire to clean things up after him? I don't.
I That has been a dead end job since Rick Neuheisel, I think. I guess they hired the guy who got bumped for cheating after Neuheisel. Who was that? It was like I think it's like somebody's dad. I know that person's son or something.
Are you? It's not Dan Hawkins, is it?
Was it Dan
He was there.
Hawkins?
Was he before
Dan
New
Hawkins
Orleans?
went real bad with him.
I don't know. I don't know. That would be a job like for an
Rick
older guy.
Neuheisel's still angry that he didn't get the Georgia Tech job, and he will attack them on his radio show whenever he gets a chance. When they hired Paul, uh, Gary Barnett, that's who I'm thinking of. And what is the? I'm trying to remember what the connection is there. I know somebody that's related to Gary Barnett, and I don't remember what the circumstances are of that. But yeah, Gary Barnett got busted for cheating, and they were put on probation, and um, it was like a weird. It was like undercharging for me. I mean, it's like stuff that's like not even like illegal. Now it's sort of like some of the sort of like the Georgia Tech stuff. And I think there were some other more serious things. But they've
All
been
right.
bad ever since they fired Gary Barnett, basically, which was 20 years ago. They had one good season with Mike McIntyre, and then that's been it.
There's a question on here about Freeman and Key. Was there an unspoken beef about the fake punt and fake? So we talked about that a little
I
bit.
mean, I have no issue with the fake punt. I think the fake punt was fine. That was in the scheme of the game. Like, I got no issue with that. They executed. Congrats. Like, the fake field goal I thought was a little bush league, but if someone swears up and down that it was not like, and they showed me video, and I sort of understand what they're saying. I just don't know if that's a scheme thing or not. And then he told in the press conference you were in, he said that it was a call. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like who cares at this point? Like the game's over. They're not gonna. I don't know when they play Notre Dame again. And that stupid rotation. Who knows if they actually do? Because we have no idea what the hell's going on with college football. Beyond maybe 2 years at a time at this point. Georgia Tech would go there at 2027. Marcus Freeman might not be the coach there. Brett Key might not be the coach at Georgia Tech. You have no idea. 3 years from now, that's a long time in college football. So uh, we'll see when they if both of them are there and they go to South Bend and it's like a prickly week, then you'll know there's some kind of beef from this game. But
Yeah.
aside from that, I think Marcus has got other bigger things ahead for their season this year, and Brent wants to get his team bowl eligible and beat Georgia. So I'm pretty sure they both have things that they're more focused on than faking a field goal in a 3-score game.
Yep. There's a question about expected timetable on Haynes King injury, which I don't think we can talk about.
I mean, I can tell you what I know, which is that Brent doesn't know, and Brent's being honest about that when he says that. They really don't know. He could wake up tomorrow and feel better. Like it is like kind of a chronic injury would be the way it would be described to me. That just has to heal up, and it'll eventually feel better. And um, it's a question of when is that point for Haynes King where he feels normal and comfortable and can throw the football with power and play loose and fast the way he does normally. I think until then you'll see, Zach Pyron, maybe you'll see Arafalo at some point. Hopefully you don't see anybody beyond that, unless it's in like a blowout win. But those are the two guys up right now, and ZP took a beating on Saturday. He is a tough customer like Haynes, and it's good that their top two guys are like that. And I'm sure we'll see Aaron at some point in some kind of role, because it's hard to go through a season or go through the next couple of weeks with just ZP. I've said it all along. I think that it was a point I made before the season. They've been very lucky that Haynes played as many snaps as he did. He basically played every meaningful snap, except for maybe a helmet coming off for a season and a half, which is almost unthinkable. Even Justin Thomas, who had the streak that he was trying to break, they didn't break. Justin had a game where he should have come out and didn't against Duke, where they didn't pull him till late, and that was one where he hurt the team probably by playing. JT probably hurt the team by playing through an injury. So it'll be interesting. I think it's great for Zach to get a little audition at this point. They're lucky to have him, but I think everyone would like to see Haynes back healthy too. So
I think they can beat Virginia Tech with Zach Pyron. Like if that's what people are getting to, I think like
I think
Zach.
that spreads a big number
Yes, absolutely.
For a VT team that's been inconsistent. Now, could
Yeah,
VT come out and hammer them? Yeah, when Kyron Jones plays well, like they're really good, but he is all over the place, week to week, game to game, quarter to quarter, series to series, even like um, they're they've not shown any level of consistency. Hopefully, this is not the week they do it. I don't. I have no. It's gonna be hard for me to even like pick a score for this game this week. I'll have to really think about it.
they're
Someone's
very.
asking if I know if Haynes King will play after this year. He has another year of eligibility. No clue. Like I think that's a discussion in November, end of November, that Brent Key has with him and his family. And all parties got to do what's best for them. I think Haynes King, his max out values probably as a college quarterback somewhere. So maybe he does the Sam Hartman thing and goes somewhere to cash in. Maybe he stays and wants to play at Georgia Tech again. Maybe he wants to try to be a pro. Maybe he wants to be a coach. We don't know. I don't know. So Haynes is the one guy in that room. Like I really don't know at all because I got to know Graham a little bit. Philo a little bit. Russell knew him better than I did. Obviously I know ZP really well because I went and scouted him. So Zach. So Zach came back. Hal's asking, saying he didn't think Zach would come back if King was coming back. No. Zach stayed because he wanted to get his degree from Georgia Tech. He's talked about this openly. They had opportunities to go play somewhere else. And people trying to he wanted to get his Georgia Tech degree. He saw the value in it. His dad works for a Georgia Tech grad. Like they know how far that degree carries you. So they weren't going to leave without it. So he was staying either way to finish school. Like that was his decision, had nothing to do with Haynes or Aaron or any of the quarterbacks.
There's a question on here. Why do we consistently look like we don't work on tackling during the week? I guess we missed tackles
Bad
yesterday.
tackling.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're still kind of trying to break bad habits of
I mean, there was
past years. So
it reverted back to form a little bit. Unfortunately, sometimes.
and you don't get to work on tackling a whole heck of a lot at practice anymore because you don't want to like tackle people to the ground and get hurt, and it's just a weird balance you've got to have to be able to tackle fundamentally and also do the things you need to do in practice to keep guys healthy. So um, yeah, I don't know. It's I think every coach is trying to figure out the right balance to be able to tackle well and get enough reps in, and then have a healthy team. So
Ooh, we just had another breaking news. The Utah's offensive coordinator just quit.
huh.
Andy Ludwig, who'd been there for 10 years. Huh. It was the Oklahoma fired their OC, I guess, today too.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then Mike Houston, I talked about, got fired. So we're starting to enter the Black Sunday phase of the season, which is tough. Having getting to know I didn't know any of these people in particular, but getting to know some of these guys is tough. But that's why a lot of them get compensated really well. I feel more bad for the guys that are at like small G5 schools that get fired because they can't absorb that as easily. But a guy at Oklahoma or something's probably making good money, I would think, or
There's
hopefully Utah.
there's a question about why is their holder a punter and not a backup quarterback like the other
I've done a whole
teams?
story on this with Ricky Brumfeld. I asked him that exact same question. What he told me was the reason why the punter is the holder, and he is a believer in that, is they spend the whole day working on that. And a lot of times, if you make the backup quarterback the holder, the only time they come over to do that in practice is on a break from something or when they're doing special teams periods. And then the other, say, 65 minutes of practice or whatever it is, they're not with that team. And so someone else is holding him, or they're using a tee or one of those, they have like a sort of a thing that kind of looks like a tripod that holds the football up that you'll see them using when they warm up on the field. We would have to kick off those. Obviously, everyone's different. I think famously, isn't Carson Beck like the holder for their kicker?
Yeah, he was.
Um,
Yeah, he was last night. I mean,
I think he's been their holder for a while. Like different guys have different strategies about it. I don't know. I always thought like my thought was that you would have like Brody Rhodes or somebody do it like that maybe won't play but is involved in the game. But Brody's basically like helping coach almost and like their main signaler guy. So I guess maybe you wouldn't use him. I don't know what you do there. Ben Guthrie, the walk on quarterback, do you make him the holder? I don't know. And I don't know that it's David's fault. Like one of those was a bad snap. And it seemed like the operation was okay. They just didn't block it. So I think maybe that's like some misplaced blame. I'd have to go back and look at the holds on the missed kicks to see if there's anything there. I don't. We know I'm not going to do that, so let's not pretend like I would. not to be funny, but we'll see what happens. I don't think Todd saying Deion's coaching better than Key. Deion has a lot of talent. They have like probably 10 like NFL guys at skill positions that are all draft eligible in the next year or two. Georgia Tech does not have that. So you give Buster, Travis Hunter, and Jimmy Horn and Shadur and some of those cats, and I think that that makes a huge difference. Or if you give Travis Hunter to let Santucci have him play some DB, like Travis Hunter will make a lot of people look like a good coach. I'm not, they have three like former like All American receivers on their team right now, like that were All Americans at other schools. Like they're pretty loaded up on skill talent. Their problems have been not being able to run the football at Colorado and their defense. And their defense
offensive.
is loaded with talent too.
Yeah, offensive line's bad. I mean, they're not great. They're starting. I think they're starting a true freshman, and yeah, Henry Freer is that
Yeah, Henry is
snapper
the
for Buffalo.
snapper, and that's the guy that Brent talks about all the time. Usually, he's been very solid. He seemed off on Saturday. I'm not sure what that was about.
Let's see.
Andrew's joking that I'm laying the groundwork for some dudes to come here.
We're getting toward the bottom. There's a question about will Key spend the money to those kind of defensive impact players like he spent for like Josh Petty for offensive linemen? I think Christian Garrett. I don't know a number, but I'm
No,
sure
so
he.
like lines of scrimmage is where they're spending their money on
Yeah,
quarterback. That's where, and then I would think after that, big skills. So like think big receiver, big tight end, linebacker, big tall corners, stuff like that. I think they'll be very active in the portal in the offseason. I'll put it that way. There's some definite glaring holes that I think obviously linebacker is a big one where I think they need to get some more depth at least to have more competition there. They just don't have enough dudes. And then there's some needs on the defensive line as well because you lose quite a few guys.
there's a question on here. Is Key? Do you think Key would hire somebody to focus solely on DB so Brumfeld could just have special teams and not have to do both?
So you could, especially with the new rules, you could do that. You could make Tim Salem the special teams coach. You could go hire some outside guy because they changed those rules. That's certainly, I guess, a possibility. Ricky's really hung his hat on that. I would say the corners have played really well, so that's tough because, like, other than Amari not tackling super well in the last two games, which he could be banged up, and that could be impacting him because he tackled really well early in the season. I thought the corners have been really one of the bright spots on the defense, and that's his position he's specifically coaching. So I don't know what you do there. Ricky's, um, I think, a really good coach. I don't understand what's going on with special teams, so, but I'm not there, so I don't know.
Let's see. We're almost done. What? I don't know. You were at Key's press conference. Did he comment on the two running into the kickers that
I
weren't
asked
called?
him. He was like, I'm not paying a fine."
Yeah, you don't want to get
He's
fined.
far too pragmatic. He's not Kirby Smart rich yet. Kirby Smart was like, went after it. I saw on Twitter.
Oh, he
Um,
went after it in the ESPN interview
yeah, he
after
did
the
it with
game.
ESPN too. I
I
saw
mean,
that on Awful Announcing or
he
whatever. Yeah.
flat out said that they tried to take the game away from him with calls. Like, yeah, he's gonna pay a fine. Um,
That's
there's a
right.
question.
Texas has got to pay. I think I saw 250 grand for the people throwing stuff on the field,
Yeah,
and they still lost the game, which was the craziest part to me. Like, I thought that was gonna like spur their comeback, and you'd see like Kirby have like a vein pop out of his head and be like the color of their uniforms after the game, like freaking out if they had like gotten screwed, and instead they held on and won. So credit to them for that. But
I was listening to the Texas broadcast on XM on the way home during that, and even they were like they were baffled by what happened. It was a weird sequence.
it was.
Uh, there's a there's a question about DBs not turning around to locate the ball. Why is it happening? I think that's happening every level of football. It's almost impossible. There's very
I think
few.
that's a real bad problem, especially when you play a running quarterback. Um, they're so scared that that guy, like, because Leonard can run it. He can run and take off 40 yards. Like he's not maybe Haynes King fast, but he ain't slow. And um, it's hard. You turn your head and you look, and you get distracted. So you're trying to mark your guy because they're extending plays. You're taught to stay on your guy until he stops his route, and then if he's not turning his head early to locate the ball, it throws you off. Or there could be fake. Yeah, I think there's a lot of overthinking going on there. I didn't think that was a huge problem on Saturday. I thought the push because of the push offs were a problem. Like Saeed got pushed off, he got pushed like almost a full, almost into the hash from the sideline on one of the catches. I think Great House had he just literally like shoved him out of the way and caught the ball. There was no should have been OPI because they weren't. There wasn't actually any like tussling. They were just kind of running in in phase down the field. Um, yeah, Notre Dame was just very physical, and they did not handle that well at all.
All right, we're getting toward the very end. There's a question about how did Chase Linton's official visit go over the weekend? Well, you can read all
Story on
about it.
JOL, baby. Go
That's
read
right.
it.
Read
Subscribe.
all about it. He
Support
called me
us.
this afternoon. Really good kid, smart. I like
I
him.
told Alex, he was like, hey, he said it wasn't like overly excited. I said, man, that is how that kid's been. Like, he has been very, he is not going to give you much. Like, I've seen some of Sam's interviews with him and stuff, and like, he's not giving you a lot. Like, he is playing it very close to the vest. And I'm sure that there's some other pieces that involve his recruitment with some of the other schools recruiting him. I don't know that he's the top guy for like Georgia, for example. So I think they want the UNC guy, Crow or whatever his name is,
yeah. He,
from
he,
Marietta. So
he told me, it's like as soon as we got on the phone, he told me, he's like, man, he said something like, man, I'm so tired. I'm about to pass out. Like he was about to take a little afternoon nap when I talked to him. So I was just glad he took 5 or 10 minutes to talk to me. But yeah, he's a really good kid. And athletically, he's one they need to, they would be able to use
they definitely need more
very
of those
early.
bodies. I think that's where you're going to
Yeah.
see Brent invest his extra cap space with the roster, whatever Georgia Tech's given him. I don't think we have a firm number yet what they're shooting for. They're going to still keep some walk-ons, but if you're going over 85, you're going to 90 or 95 or whatever it is. Like that's where if I'm Georgia Tech, the defensive line, offensive lines, where I'm investing those extra bodies, like for player development and stuff. And I think that's sort of the thinking for some other schools too, just based on what I'm seeing in recruiting.
And then the second part of that question that can be our last one, I guess,
Sure.
is just who are some guys that we should be more excited about that we aren't talking about. I'll name a few.
Oh, who are some guys? I thought you said something else.
Some I don't know my
I think
Lindell
you're talking about
accent.
the wing place that we passed by on the. I was dropping you off on Saturday
Yeah,
night.
yeah. I'll name a few. I think I was really impressed with Carrington Combs when I watched him, Hebron Christian. I think he's got some real potential to be a guy. He's a 3-star, but he's
He's
got
right on that edge of being a 4. Yeah, he's like a 5.7.
he's got some burst off the edge. I was really impressed with him. I saw him, I think, in August, early in the season. Um, the guy from Raven Gap, the offensive lineman Hazen Hudel,
Mm-hmm.
that he's he's very raw in the game too, but he played in that Baylor against Baylor, and Baylor's good. Like they're undefeated right now in Tennessee. He was moving bodies. Like I think he could get in there and have a role in the offensive line early on. Um, I'm trying to think. Like
If JP Powell's really good,
oh
like
yeah,
he's just a beast of a running back, like
playmaker.
tough
Uh,
kid.
Jaden Barr has like turned a lot of heads. I joked with Jed because he went and saw the North Oconee and East Side game a few weeks ago, and I was like, man, he was messaging me the next day. He's like, Jaden Barr is a really really good player. Like I think he had 5 touchdowns in that game. And he was doing things on offense, special teams, defense. And I was just kind of messing with him like, yeah, you're already getting on Dinkins. Just don't tell the Georgia coaches about Jaden Barr too much because he's a really good player.
Cal
Um,
Faulkner's a guy that people are sleeping on a little bit. Just kind of another one of those guys like Jane Barr is just like their best player on their team and does a little of everything. Cam Cullins too, the D tackle. They had a fat man touchdown in his game on Friday night. Um, really
he's
athletic for his size.
yeah,
So I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of ink on Dalen Pinson and Christian Garrett and those guys, and there's a lot of this is a very solid class across the board that Marquise put together. And it was funny. I still haven't seen Kevin Roche play yet, but I saw him on the sidelines. He looks like um, like an NBA like undersized like big man. Like he's like 6'8" or something, and just giant like skinny dude. Like so, I'm really curious to see what he turns into when they get him into a college strength and conditioning program. And
he sent me his. Let me look. I've got it right here on his stats from this past week. He had 6 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown, and whoever they played. I hadn't finished following the future yet, but uh,
yeah, they're up in Connecticut or wherever he is. Yeah.
he told he was 6'7" or 6'8" at the end of last year, and he told me earlier, like with the start of this season, he's grown another inch, so he's actually 6'9".
Yeah, I
So
mean
yeah,
he is a huge like not thick, but just really tall. He looks like what he looks like now. He looks like sort of a stretch like wing in the NBA, like you would see like one of those dudes you'd see like
he's
playing.
like he's not as skinny as Chet Holmgren, but he's like
Yeah, he's not like he doesn't look emaciated like Chet Holmgren, but
yeah, but
like I saw
he's
Chet Holmgren play in college at Georgia Tech played this doubleheader in Phoenix, and it was Gonzaga, Texas Tech was the first game, and then Georgia Tech, USC, and like everybody left the arena after the Texas Tech. There's like this great atmosphere in the Gonzaga game, and it was cool because I was just getting to watch it as a fan, like hanging out. They let us just kind of like sit wherever we wanted in the arena that was like whatever's empty because the media were in the media section filling that up, and just watched like a great basketball game, and he was playing, and then like, and then the Georgia plays USC, and like everybody left. I was like, what the hell? I thought there was like USC fans out in Phoenix, but not really, apparently.
yeah. But there's some other questions. They're mostly
We'll have some hoop stuff this week too. There's a surprise war room coming, so hang tight. Hopefully, it'll be up tomorrow. That's the goal. I have a little bit of a crazy week because my wife's out of town for work, so I'll be on toddler duty all week, on top of my normal assignments. So I might be extra crabby. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Appreciate you. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends about Jacketsonline. Make sure you subscribe on there. Follow us. Help independent coverage covering Georgia Tech. And for Alex, I'm Kelly Quinlan. Say goodnight, everybody. Peace.
See you guys.